So it has finally happened. The Metapocalypse has befallen us, but is it as bad as it seems? The answer is in fact no. Unless you play Necromancer, in which case it is. I'll talk about that later, as that's the change I have the biggest problem with. But first, let's discuss the star of the show, Signet of Inspiration. It got completely demolished, reduced to sharing only 6 seconds of quickness and 1 stack of everything else. Considering that it previously shared around 30 seconds, you can see this is a bit of a step down. In addition to this, quickness, regeneration, protection, and resistance can now only stack 5 times, down from 9. This quite amusingly renders Time Warp completely useless, as it pulses 11 times, but that's alright, because now we get to mow raid bosses. The result of this change is Revenant getting pushed out of most groups in favour of another Chronomancer in order to maintain maximum quickness uptime, which may even be higher than pre-patch because of ease of boon distribution. And we also march closer to DPS golem rotations, as permanent alacrity is now quite possible within a raid scenario. This is quite favourable to classes that use many cooldowns, in other words, not thieves. So the glorious Elementalist meta may partially return, as well as increasing the effectiveness of Sword Scepter Torch Guardians. The rotation for Dagger Warhorn Elementalists also got fixed, as Burning Speed's cooldown has been reduced, such that it can always be used while attuning to fire. A smart change by ArenaNet, as it doesn't affect the DPS of the build significantly, but it does mean that certain players will consider it playable again. As a result of the 2 Chronomancer setup, this interestingly removes the necessity of inspiration, although there are several variants that still use it. This opens up the regeneration boon to the rest of the team. I think this can be considered an opening for a healing druid to reach new heights, as they could now use Healing Spring to keep up permanent regeneration on the entire team and only have it overwritten briefly when the Mesmers use Signet of Inspiration. With a full Magi or Zealot setup, there is a potential for regeneration ticks healing for over 500. And an unlimited source of celestial avatar energy juice. The lack of Revenant probably places the burden of protection application onto either a Hammer Guardian or a Druid Stone Spirit. Of course, Revenant can still be used. In fact, it seems that Revenant's Assassin's Presence can even handily make up for its average DPS, especially on smaller hitboxes. But I would imagine that the former options, or perhaps even forsaking protection entirely, will probably be more common. Moving on, Conditioned Phalanx Strength Warrior also suffers a little at the hand of the Signet nerf, and it needs a little helping hand with its might output. An excellent choice for this would in fact be a Revenant, as it can effortlessly pulse a good amount of might and other boons as well. A long anticipated change is the reduction of base healing for Druids, and this has indeed happened. Overall healing is down by around 30%, but scaling is up considerably. I almost like this change. It actually makes running Viper or Berserker a little riskier than it was before, but it's certainly not enough to make healing power mandatory. Perhaps on the high pressure fights, one Druid may take Magi and the other Berserker or Viper, but that was sometimes the case anyway, so nothing has really changed for Druids in this patch. Another interesting change is that Venom Share Thief has been strengthened considerably, as Damaging Venoms and Skelk Venom have had their cooldowns reduced to 30 seconds. And now that everyone has Alacrity all the time, this may be enough for Venom Share Thief to be a decent choice, especially as it brings reasonable utility with a large group heal with Skelk Venom and strong CC with Basilisk. Just how effective it can be in a raid scenario remains to be seen, but this is certainly a step in the right direction, and as a fan of Venoms, I'm hopeful for the future of this build. If Leeching Venoms could be moved to another trait line, that will probably be enough for it to have a real place in raiding. At last, we come to the final major change, to the Necromancer, which got almost removed from the game. Lich Form and Death Nova Jagged Horrors will now perish after 30 seconds regardless of healing. In fact, their health doesn't deplete automatically, not exactly a great consolation. This dramatically reduces Necromancer's single target damage and in my opinion removes a massive amount of flavour from the profession in PvE. I'm not sure it's even worth to take Death Magic anymore, as you'll only end up maintaining 1 or 2 minions from Death Nova, so Necromancers will probably always just take Blood Magic. And as much as I love Blood Magic, I'd rather have Death Magic as an option on certain fights, in addition to the fact that Medic Necro is dead and can't be brought back as a minion. It relied more heavily on minions as it chooses to take Blood and Death Magic, forsaking the additional DPS of Reaper, which cannot really be justified anymore due to the Lich Form nerf. I'd like to see at least the Death Nova horrors reverted, and maybe even Lich Form as well, as Necromancer DPS wasn't a really big problem in the first place, except perhaps on Sabbather where a massive amount of horrors could be accumulated. Epidemic still exists, but even bouncing Epidemic and demolishing adds probably isn't really enough utility to bring a Necromancer along anymore, especially with another Mesmer present who can pull in mobs for easy cleaving. The condition management from Plaguesigurt may still have a place at Matthias, but even that is probably a little bit dubious right now. And there you have it. My thoughts on the changes I think are the most important. Be sure to read the full notes here, and don't forget to claim your profession is underpowered now. Although aside from Necromancer, I think everything is in a reasonable spot. Thanks for watching.